Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to this podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about immigration and the US. So, immigration and the US immigration policies. Do we think immigration is a good thing? And any of the issues surrounding immigration. I know that immigration is on a lot of people's mind. A lot of people want to come to the US, they want to move here, maybe live out the American dream. And of course, there are Americans who are pro, and there are Americans who are anti-immigration, but maybe it's not just so black and white like that. Maybe it's not a matter of is it good or is it bad. So just a matter of in what way is it good or in what way is it bad. That's what we're going to get into, and we'll start in just a second. Before we do, everybody click that subscribe button. And also after you subscribe, make sure you also click the bell and select all. That way you'll know when we upload future videos. YouTube will not show you future videos that we upload unless you click the bell and select all. So make sure you do it, and then you're all set. All right, so let's say hello to our guest, our friend, Leon. How are you?
Good, Ben. How's it going? Hey, everyone. What's up?
Yeah, doing well. Leon, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So,
Appreciate it.
of course, all right, so today we're talking about immigration, and well, it's a really hot topic, isn't it? Because immigration, people are either very angry about it, or they are really wanting to come to the US. So there's Americans who either want it or don't, and then there are people who really want to come to the US. So as Americans, um, we were asked this question on one of our videos in the comment section. Somebody said, "Do you think that immigration is a bad thing?" So I guess let's start with that. How do Americans generally feel about immigration, keeping in mind that we are a country of immigrants?
Yeah, it's correct. It is a hot topic. You're going to get different type of answers, different type of views from everybody. We're going to give our opinions, our feedback about this. It can go both ways, but as me, I don't think it's a bad thing, to be honest with you. I mean, that's what makes United States one of the best countries is because of the immigrations, the people who migrates to the US. You have all the best talents from around the world. But at the same time, a lot of Americans feels the opposite because of the situation now with after the pandemic, there's scarce jobs available, and people are competing for the jobs, and a lot of Americans feels that immigrants are taking their jobs, and it goes back and forth, and even the Africans that's from Nigeria, and a lot of them has a different mindset, and very I guess, aggressive in getting the jobs, and they feel differently about African American, about their so-called mindset, laziness, whatever you want to call it, uneducated. But yeah, it's a big topic. We're gonna dive into it. I mean, what's your take on that? What's your opinion?
Yeah, certainly, not just America, but many countries, we want to do good. We want to help other people. There are people that really are in a really bad situation, and they need to leave their country because of war, oppression, whatever. And so, countries like America who are able, yeah, we should take immigrants. Of course, anytime there's too much of a good thing, that could be a problem, right? And so I think that on what's on the minds of Americans is how many do we accept? I think that immigration and letting people in is a good thing because diversity is one of the cornerstones of this country. It's what makes this country strong. So absolutely, we need immigration. We need people from other countries coming here, and hopefully one day becoming Americans and American citizens themselves. But I think that there needs to be some control. I think that it needs to be, really what we should emphasize is we want to make sure that immigration is legal. I think that is one of the things that really bugs Americans is when the immigration is not legal. So there's that. So I think it's about control, how the number of people that we allow to enter so that, even if it's a good thing, even if America stands to benefit, you need to have a valve that you can, like a faucet, you need to be able to turn it on, off, high, low, just to control everything so that then we're able to support the people who are coming in a way that will help them flourish, and at the same time in a way where our own citizens, our own people, don't feel like uh, immigrants are coming and taking from what is a limited pie, right? So that there's enough for everybody, there's enough to go around. And sometimes it's not about stopping something like immigration, but just sometimes we need to throttle it back, hold back some people, just to make sure that we are ready to receive them, and so that they can have the best experience, and so that Americans who are here, who are our own people, don't feel like what we have, our resources are being depleted, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe that's the key word, legal. And that's what's the problem that's happening in the US is that a lot of illegal immigrants are crossing the border and they're giving the bad rap to legal immigrants and they're
Hmm.
getting the burnt of it. These illegals are coming in, you don't know what their backgrounds are. Some can be, very evil, of assaults, terrorism, and
Hmm.
they're just causing maybe havoc. You see a lot of rape crimes and going on in the U.S. and it's
Hmm.
being performed by illegal immigrants. And when they do this, it gives a bad name for the legal immigrants who comes to U.S.
Yes.
in a legal way and pursue their dreams and their happiness and their future. And these illegals are giving them a bad name, and that's what happens in the U.S. So Americans ends up stereotyping and say, okay, so you're an immigrant, so you must be illegal, or just because you're a legal immigrant, with all these things happening, then Americans start stereotyping these immigrants. And yeah, it's not fair, but that's how what's happening. And I think our government needs to do a better job in closing that border. And to be honest with you, I don't believe the Democrats did a good job. They let in millions of people. Technically, when Trump was the president, there were a lot of uh, illegal immigrants trying to cross the border. They were stopped there, and there were millions. And when Biden took over, it pretty much doubled their 3 times. So,
Hmm.
and a lot of them crossed the border, and it's just crazy because a lot of these illegal immigrants are, they're giving like one-way tickets. Like, where do you want to go? Anywhere around the world, and they end up picking like New York or some other big cities, but they're supposed to pick like other countries. They're giving them free hotels, free
Oh
airplane
yeah,
tickets.
yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous, right? And here you are, you have the legal immigrants, even the Americans, the citizens, and you're saying, well, a lot of people are homeless and things, and you're not giving back, and
Right.
these illegals are getting money. I mean, what the heck? What's going on? So, yeah.
That is angering. That is angering. I can see why Americans would be infuriated by that. Um, and yeah, I also agree that what is wrong with saying no, we're going to close the border and you have to do it the legal way. I never understood what is wrong with that. What is wrong? I mean, in your own home, don't you close the door and lock it so that you can decide who comes into your house? What is so wrong with America doing that? We just want for there to be some sort of procedure, some sort of process, some sort of regulation. We're not saying don't come. We're saying come legally, come utilizing the processes that we have in place. And the other thing that is really I don't understand. This is what I don't understand is how, okay, you have people who've come here illegally, they have children, and all of a sudden their children, they have citizenship. And now I know that in America, obviously, if you're born in the country, you're automatically a citizen. However, should you be a citizen if your parents came here illegally? Because there are a lot of cases where people come here just to give birth to their baby so that their kids would be citizens, and then they have an anchor in this country, or they just come to this country illegally. They have a family, they have several kids, whatever. And but what is that message sending back to people in their own country? It's saying, don't worry about whether it's legal or not, just come, have kids and you'll be fine. I don't think that's a good message. I think that's really taking advantage of this country. And also, I really don't think that those people should have citizenship. If you don't come here legally, why should your kids? be recognized as a citizen. I mean, it's one thing to have residency, but citizenship based on a based on essentially it's a crime, right, to come here illegally. So you come here illegally and then you want citizenship. I think it's too much. I think maybe if they were born here, okay, you obviously you have residency, but to have citizenship, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I mean, and it doesn't have to be illegal. It can also be legal. When I say legal, you have people coming with a tourist visa and they come and they're like 9 months pregnant
Oh,
or
yes,
eight
yes.
months and they
Yeah,
come in and then they have a child and
yes,
then their child is automatically a citizen. I
yes.
mean, is that fair for
No.
people out there? And then they go back to their country. I mean, they are given the opportunity once they turn the age of 18 that they can either, keep their U.S. citizenship or give it up. So, but most of the time they will keep that citizenship. So, yeah, I mean, as far as the illegal part, yeah, I don't see that. But then at the same time, their child is born in U.S. and they would have that right because they were born in the U.S. But coming in as illegal, I mean, they got to do something about that. And for me, you talked about the border. For me, is about the protection of the American citizens, my fellow Americans. In
Yeah.
order to do that, I believe that like other countries, they have military that actually guards the border. We have U.S. Border Patrol. Of course, each agency has their own, responsibilities, due diligence, that kind of stuff. But for me, I believe that it should be guarded by a military, whether it's the U.S. military or maybe the guards, the U.S. Guards. I think they're the one who should be guarding the border. The weekend warriors, as you could say. I think is better because they have more of the technologies to try and identify these illegal people coming in the borders. Night visions and all types of technologies and
Hmm.
underground, things. And I think they should do that. I mean, to be honest with you, but again, that's the government thing. I'm not in government. I'm not in a high position, but I mean, this to us Americans, this kind of makes sense to us.
So you're saying in other countries they have the military guarding their borders, which means if
Yes.
you try to sneak over, you're going to get shot
I mean, if you're crossing the border
illegally.
aggressively,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you pretty much get shot. Yeah.
Whereas we're like, oh, don't come, but if you don't come because it's illegal, but if you do, okay, we'll give you citizenship. I mean, think about that. Does that not sound ridiculous?
Yeah, exactly. I
You
mean,
know,
it's crazy.
Leon, have you heard of these birthing centers? Like, for example, there in the parts of LA, I've heard that there are these houses that people have set up to be birthing centers for people from Asia. They'll come over pregnant. Legally, they'll enter as a tourist. They'll overstay. They'll purposely come here to give birth to a kid. So now their kid has citizenship because it was born here. And then what happens? In a number of years, they'll apply for citizenship for themselves, the parents, on account of the kid's citizenship or at least a residency or something like that. So they stay here illegally in order to have a baby. The baby is a legal, a citizen, and then from that they apply for legal residency. So it's all really whacked, in my opinion. That it all starts from a place of illegality, and I don't like that at all.
Yeah, this happens on a regular basis. This is normal, especially in LA. I think it's because part of that in LA, a lot of them are coming from the Asia
Hmm.
continent, right? So, I mean, they're smart. I mean, if I'm from there and I don't have U.S. citizenship and I want the best for my child and I'm from a third world country, I mean, I'm gonna try my best because like you said, you're giving a wrong vibe. So I want the best for the future of my child. So I'm gonna do whatever it means that if I get a visa to go to the US and my wife is pregnant or something like that, you better damn sure that I'm gonna try and do my best to have my child get, born in the US and have that future of my child. I mean, that's like a human nature thing. It just happens that the US government or the US needs to do a better job in trying to prevent that from happening because everybody wants to come to the US. I
That's
mean,
right.
I do know like in Scandinavia country, like if you're born, if you're there and you have a job and you have like a working visa and you're
Hmm.
not a Danish citizen or a Swedish citizen, and you
Hmm.
give birth to that child, they are not automatically a Danish citizen or a Swedish citizen until you become a citizen yourself. So it's almost like rejecting your child to be one of them.
Hmm. You know what? It sounds harsh, but it also makes sense because if not, people would exploit that loophole as they do in America, and they don't just, it's not like it's just a few people doing it; it's a lot of people doing that, and that's a big drain on us as Americans. All of a sudden, our tax money is having to go fund these programs to help illegal immigrants survive and live in this country. Meanwhile, because they're illegal, they're not maybe working legal jobs where they're paying taxes, so they're not even paying into the whole system that is supporting them. So the burden is on American citizens or people who are here legally. The burden is on us to support these illegals. That is where Americans get really angry.
Yeah, because of the taxpayers. That's all our money. I mean, we supposed to get that money in terms of our future, like, Social Security, our retirement, and, our healthcare, our welfare. And yet the government is taking that money and putting it in, the illegals and to give birth. I mean, we have a lot of cases where they give birth to their child, become a citizen, and these kids become very prominent, and they even become a politician, like a mayor of the city. So there are great futures ahead for them, but the question is, should they have been given that right? I mean, that's where you're kind of a slippery slope. I mean,
Yeah.
do they have the rights? They are born in the United States. I mean, for me, I my personal opinion, I think they have the rights because they were born in the US, whether legally or not legally. To me, it's really the responsibility of the government to prevent that from happening. But once
Mhm.
a child is born in the United States, for me, my personal opinion is, yeah, they're a US citizen because they were born in our country, in our land, right? So
Oh, okay.
it sucks. It sucks that happens because, like you said, we have to pay all that welfare and all of that uh, hospital bills when they give birth, and the state or the, federal, that's all taxpayers' money, and that's not fair.
Hmm.
So for us, that's why we, the citizens and the voters, we need to do a better job in electing the politicians who really put an emphasis on these borders and to have more strict laws. I mean, we can't say, well, blame the immigrants and this and that, and they're the one crossing. No, I think the number one thing that we should blame is our government. They're not doing a good job. They're doing a poor job. They're just there to rape us citizens, to take our money and do whatever they want and spend that money. So I don't think we should have that. We should give these, excuse the word, but these F politicians these rights to do that. I mean, if they start doing that and ignoring, we should impeach them or get them out of the in office. That's my personal opinion.
Hmm. So you're more liberal in that instance where you think that if the kid is born in the U.S. to illegal parents, it's okay to give them citizenship. Whereas I'm thinking, no, do not give them citizenship because their parents were here illegally. Every offspring of the parents will not be citizen. I think that we can give it's not the kid's fault that they were born in the U.S. to illegal parents.
Exactly.
But I think what we should give the kids is residency. That's fine. No, the kid, you don't have to, you have residency. You can apply for citizenship. You can become a naturalized citizen down the road. But I would not want to give uh, the kids citizenship just as a birthright, but they can become a citizen through the naturalization process. Um, I was asked in a prior YouTube video in a comment, what is it that you think that immigrants should do for this country, for your country? Because I said that a lot of people who want to come to the U.S., they're always thinking, oh, I want to come to the U.S. because I want to make more money, I want more opportunities, I want this, I want that. It's always me, 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 me. And I said, okay, this is another reason why Americans don't or have a problem with immigrants because they're always thinking what's in it for them, right? So I said in that video, how about you also start thinking about what's in it for us? What's in it for Americans? Your presence in our country. How are you making things better for us? How can you give back so that the benefits don't only run in one direction? I think that's fair. And so some guy commented and said, so what is it that you want us to do? How can we give back? And, you know, I'll tell you, I'm not sure. That's something you need to think about, but I'll tell you what we don't want you to do is we don't want you coming here and committing crimes. And I'm not saying most immigrants do that. I'm not even saying many immigrants do that. I'm saying just a small percentage of immigrants do that. And the problem, though, is that when you're an immigrant, even if you're only a small percentage of immigrants commit crimes, the problem is the optics, right? We let you in to help you. And even if it's a small percentage that commit crimes, unfortunately, Americans generalize and then they start to think, oh, we should just stop all of it, right? And I think that that's something we have to be aware of. That is that it's it's kind of like when you go to somebody's house, you got it's like 0% or sorry 100% six. You have to have a 100% success rate in that you can't do anything. You can do no wrong. You can't do anything wrong. Otherwise, people would just close their door to you, right? So even if they let in not 100 people, one person is a murderer. I think that's enough for somebody to say no more, right? Because even though the percentage is low, the the crime and the effects of it and how bad it is very high. Like the risk is high, right? Because even though it might not happen, if it does, the consequences and the results are very devastating. And then at the end of the day, you're thinking, we're trying to do good by letting people in, and then this happens. So you know what? You naturally, your natural human instinct is to be like, I just forget about it, because now we're going to have to spend more time, more resources prosecuting people. We're going to have to spend more time, more resources vetting people. It's just places such an undue burden on us when all we wanted to do was help others from other countries. So I can see why, some Americans are just like, what, forget it. No good deed goes unpunished, right? Some people do think that. What is your opinion about this, Leon?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you gotta like not do any crimes, be a good citizen. But I'll take it further. I mean, what can you do? That person asked. I mean, volunteer work. I mean, us as Americans, we do a lot of volunteer work, especially when we're going to college. We have to do something where we give back to the community. And this is what we're talking about. You can volunteer, you can find like 2 hours of work and do something. And the most important part is be part of the community. A lot of the immigrants don't want to
Yes,
be part of the community.
right.
And what happened is they isolate themselves like within their own race or their own ethnicity, right? So
Yes,
to be part of that, you got to be blend in. We have a diverse place in United States, so you got to learn people's culture and blend in and get to know each other and basically, uh, put yourself there in the community. I mean, this is the most thing that I think that what you can do as an immigrant. But a lot of the immigrants, like I said, they isolate themselves from everybody else and they stay within their own race. Maybe it's because of the language, maybe it's
hmm
because of the culture, maybe it's because that's where they feel comfortable. But you know, you got to give back. You just can't like take things from United States and say, hey, thanks for everything, ciao. I don't care much about it. So
right. I don't remember which conservative person said this, but they said that if you are a racist person, if you are like a KKK person who just hates immigrants and you don't want them blending with Americans, right? Like you want them segregated, then the best thing you can do is to actually open the doors and let a lot of immigrants in. Why? Uh, because when there are enough of their people, they'll just all stick to them, cluster, and they'll stick within their own group. As opposed to if you let some in but not enough, what happens is they will then mingle with other Americans. So if you're a racist person and you don't want foreigners mingling with Americans, the best thing you can do is let in more foreigners so that they'll all cluster together. They will marry, they will have kids, they will have their own, sort of society. They won't mix with, quote, us. And that was something that I heard that I thought that's a very interesting theory.
or in my belief, but before I say this, why don't we go ahead and do a reset and do the subscription thing information that you're going to mention?
Yeah, so everybody, you're listening to us talking about immigration in America. It's not black and white. It's not simply is it good, is it bad, but very nuanced, and we're giving our opinion about whether immigration is a good thing or a bad thing. And of course, we're talking about legal immigration versus illegal immigrations and the different, the pros and cons. Before we continue, everybody, please click that subscribe button and also make sure you click the bell, select all, and that way you'll know when we upload future videos. YouTube will not show you future videos we upload unless you click the bell and select all, so make sure you do it, and then you're all set. And please give this video a thumbs up. It'll really help this video be discovered by others. All right, so let's get back to Leon. You were saying,
Yeah, as I was saying, or what you can do with, because you mentioned about the KKK, because their ancestry is from Europe, send them back to Europe. I mean, if they're like KKK and they're like racist and all that, and they're not open and everyone's doing their job or their community and, fitting in, my way is like, if you're a racist and all that, send them back because they're not, if you look at their ancestry, they're from Europe anyhow, so send them back to Europe. That'll
right,
probably
right.
change their mind, right? Because
Well, those, yeah,
in all honesty, all of them are from immigrants anyhow, right? They
right,
didn't come here. I mean, the only natives really are the Native American Indians, right? So,
right, right.
ship them back. I mean, if they want to be discrimination in that point
No,
of view.
thankfully, those people are in the minority.
Yes. Uh-huh. And part of that is why is because of our U.S. government. I mean, look at the history. I mean, they pretty much wanted a genocide, right? These Native American Indians. I mean, they basically gave them a lot of viruses that almost wiped them out. So,
Oh, really? Okay.
we have a bad history about that. If you look at it, I mean, they've pretty much been almost wiped out by giving
Well,
them, oh, the American people, here's a blanket for, to help in the winter. But guess what? They put in some viruses in that, like chickenpox virus
oh,
on those,
really? Wow, that's
yeah,
vicious.
on the blankets and everything, and almost wiped them out. So
Um,
that's American history. It's almost like a genocide. We have that genocide in the American people with the Native American Indians.
wow, I didn't know that. There's a Trojan horse right there, that blanket.
Yeah,
What now?
exactly. So, mhm.
Americans, one of the opposition, one of the, yeah, one of the things that Americans don't like about immigrants, uh, maybe is the failure to integrate, right? So a lot of people complain like, why is it that you've been living here for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Why is it that you still can't speak English, or why is it that you refuse to speak English? I think that's a rub. That's definitely a rub. Look, there's no law that says you have to integrate, but when you don't, that doesn't, Americans don't like that, do we?
No, not at all. I mean, you are correct. We have like people 15 years, 20 years that doesn't even speak English. How does that happen? Because they live in a community where they don't need to speak English, You go to East LA, a lot of people there are Spanish speakers. They don't have to speak English because everything they watch from television, the stores that they're in, their neighborhood, their community, everything is in Spanish. So why do they even need to speak English, right? Same
Yeah.
thing with Chinese people, right? You go to
Hmm.
like places like Monterey Park or I don't know, maybe not Hacienda Heights, but maybe Diamond Bar or Diamond Bar is more prominent area, but like what else is there? City
It's
of
like
Industry.
San Gabriel, the San Gabriel
Yeah,
Valley is what
San
you're
Gabriel
talking
Valley,
about. Yeah.
exactly. The San Gabriel Valley, you don't even have to speak English for them because all the stores are in Chinese words.
Hmm.
They have Chinese friends, all the food everywhere. The
Yes.
stores, everything is in
It's their
Chinese.
own
So for
world.
them, it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
and they even have television in Chinese. So why do they even have to speak English? So this is why they're not able to, they don't want to speak English and they have no desire to speak English because everything is there. So for them, it's like, why do I need to? I'm
You know,
here, I'm working.
that is
Yeah.
so true. That's so true because, like in LA, there are a lot of these communities that are very heavily populated by a certain a certain group of immigrants. Like there are total Chinese communities, there are Mexican communities, there are Armenian communities where it's like, yes, you could be living in a Chinese world, a Mexican world, Armenian world, and there are neighborhoods like that where everything is in their native language. Everybody is their own people, right?
Yeah, and you're from LA, right? This is
Yeah.
the thing I don't like about the US because we still have discrimination. And the reason, in my opinion, is because we stereotype, well, not stereotype, but we always have to say, what nationality or what's your background, right? Like when you're applying
All
for
right.
anything, a job or anything like that, it sounds like, what are you? Are you Caucasian? Are you, American Mexican or American Latino or Asian American or, Middle Eastern? I mean, they're like segregating people. And then even in LA, it's like these people in high schools or students or colleges and places, they're like hanging around with their own race. You see people who
All
are
right.
Asian, and I'll even go into it further. You have these Asian group, but these Asian group, you'll see like people whose Japanese group, specifically Japanese group, stay with the Japanese people, or with Chinese people, stay with Chinese people. And same thing with Latin America. You see these Argentine people, they'll stay with Argentine people. You see these Mexican, they'll stay with Mexican. Honduras,
Hmm.
they'll stay with Honduras. So it's pretty much all segregated, and it's not by force, but it's by choice, right? And I think until we eliminate that by categorizing, what's your nationality or your background, your ancestry, I think we're going to continue to have this debate. It's sad. I mean, you're African American. No, it's not African American or Latino American. You know, I'm American. The bottom
It's
line is
just
American.
American.
If
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
go to every country, they consider us as American. They don't segregate us. If you go to Brazil, they don't say, "Oh, you're African Brazilian," or "you're, Latin Brazilian," or "you're native Brazilian." No, they don't do that. You're German Brazilian, or you're Italian Brazilian. No, they don't do that. They just say you're Brazilian.
Right. That is true. In America, it has to be you're something dash American, which that yeah, I think a lot of times that has to do with like the whole diversity thing, and it's become very inorganic the way we achieve diversity. But maybe that's what's needed in order for it to one day be organic. But yeah, that's not the best.
Yeah,
Um,
and a part of that is probably to segregate like the immigrants. I'm probably sure that was
yeah,
their main focus, is to identify these immigrants. But then once you become a citizen, why do you
mhm,
have to say it, right? You have to state it. So,
yeah,
I mean, this is a thing that we Americans need to change. And I guess, like I said, part of that has to be really coming from our government. They're the one who oversees the whole country. So you need intelligent people going there. And a lot of the politicians are not really intelligent. They're more kind of corrupt and more of me, me, me. What can I get from it? Before is like, what did JFK said? It's not what you can do for your country, but what you can give back to your country,
what your
right?
country can wait, it's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your
Yes,
country. Yeah, that's it.
exactly, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's the opposite now, right?
Hmm.
And
Right.
this is the sad thing. Yeah,
We look very much to our country to do for us. That's right.
yeah,
Um, but beyond language, I mean, there's also this idea of cultural integration as well. I think that as an immigrant, um, one piece of advice to you is, try to culturally integrate, try to learn American culture so that you can understand how, what's on the mind of an American, what we like, what we don't like. And, we've done lots of podcasts about things like this, what makes someone American. I think that especially if you're an immigrant living here, you really need to educate yourself on American culture. That'll help you fit in, that'll help you understand and how to navigate this world, how this American world, because you are living here, you want to live here. What Americans don't like is, you of course it's a good thing to retain your national identity, your own cultural identity where you're from, but at the same time, don't let your cultural identity be a wall where or anything that prevents you from becoming also American. I think that it's entirely possible for somebody to have a dual identity, and that is something that I think every immigrant should strive to have, is a dual identity. Not just that because you're coming from a certain country that you will always be that. No, you'll be that and American. You have to wrap your head around this idea that if you want to live in America, you want to be welcomed in America, that you must adopt a dual identity. I think that a lot of people have a hard time with that. And just like you said, Leon, there are people who want to live in these little ethnic villages in American cities where they don't even need to speak English. They're just around other people that are just their own people. And while there's some safety and security in hanging out with your own people, maybe don't let that be your only social network, right?
Yeah, and I also think it's part of our fault too, as us Americans, because we also have walls too, right? I mean, we have walls. If a person is an American, that wall kind of chops down or goes down. And but when it comes to immigrants, we have that certain wall, especially if they can't speak English or they have difficulty being understood or
Yeah, yeah.
they have difficulty in the English language. Our walls come up. It's like, oh, okay, because a lot of Americans feels like if you can't be understood or I can't understand you, I'm not going to waste my time in trying to have all my energy trying to focus in what you're trying to say. I'm just
Hmm.
going to say, okay, well, not nice to meet you, and then just leave because I just
Yeah,
don't want my energy. I want to do things. Time is very valuable, and this is, I think, it's part of our fault as Americans that we put in the walls because you look at every places around the United States. You look at white America and you look at their pictures, like their friends and relatives, and 90% of the time or 95% of the time, it's the same race. They're white.
oh, they're
Same thing,
homogenous.
same,
Yeah,
yeah, same thing with African Americans, same thing with
yeah.
Latinos, same thing with Asians. I mean, it's a segregation. You don't see a lot of mixtures, and the reason of that is because we sometimes we don't try to learn the culture. We don't try to
Hmm.
mix with culture. I guess you can say that we're content and we're comfortable where we say, we really don't want to learn much. I mean, you're here in America and you need to learn our culture, and I don't think I want to spend too much learning about other people's culture. And I think
Yeah.
this is the wall that we have. And I think in order to break that, we really have to take the time and learn and educate. And that's where it's important because of our educational system where we don't have that kind of a cultural teaching and upbringing, right? And they lose that, and that's where the kind of segregation takes place because they're not understanding each culture. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that obviously this is something that occurs in nature, right? Like flock, like
Yes.
with like, right? So, and people kind of congregate if they have certain common experiences, like experiences growing up. Now, obviously, if you maybe grew up in another country and you're living in the US, you're not going to have the same common experience growing up as a typical American. So maybe that is why there's no commonality, and maybe that's why people don't mix as much. But I find that, in American universities, that that is the best place to see diversity in action, because you do see a lot of like interracial friendships, interracial dating. I think universities are a great place to see where people can naturally mix.
Yeah, it's the great place. It's the number one place to really mix and understand each one's identity, culture, etc. But the problem is, I don't think a lot of high percentages, right, do that. They still go to they find their same, ethnicity, background, or race, right?
Hmm.
But it's a great place for them to mix and to understand. But I'm not saying all, right, because that'd be
Hmm.
stupid for me to say it. But I'm talking about the majority, and I think they don't take the time for it. Maybe it's
Yeah,
because they're focused on one thing, they feel more comfortable in one thing. Um, yeah,
I think that the mixing of people from different cultures in America will happen. Maybe not. Maybe it takes longer than one generation. Maybe it'll happen in the second generation. Maybe it takes a little bit of American washing before they can, before they can mix with Americans completely. It's like you can mix with them in that the visual is there, and that you're around people who are you're around a group of people who are diverse. Visually it looks mixed, but if you go deeper, it's not really mixed, because what you're not seeing is that uh, they don't really still have a meeting of the minds. They still think very differently. Their goals, their ambitions, their whole life goals, or what they want, is still very different. And so that's where the mixing doesn't occur beyond just a superficial level. And I think that maybe that just doesn't happen with first generation immigrants. Maybe it takes a couple of generations for immigrant families and their children to adopt a very American way of thinking, where um, it's not just on a superficial level, but your deeper, ultimate goals in life and how you think, uh, ultimately, if you have been in this country long enough, I think that you'll start to think like the typical American, I suppose. But if you're an immigrant, you might not in the very beginning think like the typical American, because what's still very fresh in your mind is this belief that you're an outsider. And it takes maybe a couple generations for you to feel like, you know what, no, we're not an outsider. We're here. We're here and we are as planted as an anchor. So I don't know. That's just my theory.
Yeah, I think it's going to take more than two generations. I think it's going to take maybe 4 or 5 generations for it to really change. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the problem is education, understanding each people's culture, because the thing that we have is, like say Middle Eastern, right? If you're a Middle
Mhm.
Eastern, whether you're immigrant of Middle Eastern or you're an American Middle Eastern, born and raised in U.S., when something happens in the Middle East, like terrorism, a lot of Americans really don't care if you're from, Lebanon, or,
Right.
from Middle East, Israel, or Iraq or Syria or all those other places. If they go to war with Iran or something like that, they're going to stereotype you. Whether it
Hmm.
doesn't matter whether you're a different, you're not even Iranian, and you're like Lebanese. They can care less. They'll still threaten you. They'll do things and put you in a box and say you're in this category. You're a
Hmm.
Middle Eastern, regardless of what part of the country. Same thing applies to Asia, right? To Asian people, like, with the COVID and all this and the things. And if you're Asian and it came from China, if you're in
Hmm.
different race, whether you're from Thailand or Indonesia or you're from Korean or Japan, they're gonna isolate you and they're gonna think that you're Chinese, or you're gonna put you in a box because you're Asian. And
Right.
why do they do that? The hate crime is because they don't take the time to understand, the people's culture and who they are and what they are. Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's true. There are a lot of Americans who are ignorant to different cultures as well, especially the ones who, who have been here for many generations, or who think that they are tried and true Americans and nothing else. And you've met Americans like that, where they just think themselves Americans. And if you were to ask them what is your ethnic background, they don't really know. They'll be like, I don't know, I'm a quarter this, a quarter that, a quarter this, and that. Like though, there's a lot of those.
Yeah. And
They
they
don't
never
really
even
know.
visited the place. They never
They
even
don't
been
know.
there. They don't know
Yeah.
the history. They don't know the culture. But hey, I'm a quarter percent Irish. I'm a quarter percent Italian. I mean, but I don't
Yes,
know
but they
anything
don't
about the
really
culture.
know. Yeah, but
Yeah.
they don't know.
Exactly.
They don't
Yes.
know. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So, well, what else do we want to say before wrapping up here?
Yeah, I think some people say that we don't like immigrants. We do like
We
immigrants,
do.
just the
Yeah.
legal one, right? The
We
one who
like
really
the
puts back.
illegal ones. Yeah.
Yeah, and the one who, gives back to society. We don't want the selfish and, isolated ones and, just come and go and take the
Hmm.
money and take people's job. And I hear a lot that a lot of these immigrants says, we take the job, like say, for example, like I'm just gonna compare two black people, right? One is
Hmm.
from Africa and the other one's an African American. And when there's an African, they say, well, you guys don't get the job because you guys are lazy or you guys are uneducated in this. It's not us immigrants trying to take your job, is that you can't get the job. You guys are not educated. No, I'd have to disagree with that. There are a lot of African American who are educated and can get the job. Why can't they get the job? Because the reason is a lot of the business company, the corporations, they exploit the immigrants, right? Say, for
Hmm.
example, if the African American is an engineer and say that this Nigerian is engineer, guess what? Who do you think they're going to hire if everything is pretty much the same? They're going to hire the Nigerian engineer. Why is that? Because he came from Nigeria. So if you offer him a position and a salary, he's going to take it because he never had that kind of salary. Let's say this engineer, the position technically should be like 180,000 for the position, but guess what? This corporation is gonna offer this Nigerian 150,000. But they're not going to offer this to the American. Why? Because the American knows that this salary is 180. Why are you offering me 150? So the
Yeah.
corporation is going to take it for 150. It's benefit for them. They save it. It's the bottom line. They're making profit. So they're exploiting immigrants. So it's not really that that the African Americans are not educated and can't get the job, and is because the immigrants are smarter. No, you guys don't realize you guys are being exploited because in the corporation world, it's about the bottom line, the profit, and a lot
Hmm.
of immigrants don't understand that, and they just say, the excuse to say, well, we're smarter, we're more educated, we're better than you. It's not that we're taking the job; it's because we're more qualified than these African Americans or these Americans. And for me, they don't understand why they're being hired because of this I just described.
Yeah, they're exploited, they're being paid less, and they're willing to accept it, whereas Americans won't. I get it, yeah.
Yeah,
So I would just emphasize that, I think immigration is a good thing. It definitely has to be legal. There has to be some control. I mean, I think about just how when I was applying for residency in an EU country, I mean, I went through a lot of paperwork, right? I had to have a lawyer, and I think about how they did a background check on me. They wanted resumes, they wanted this and that, they want to know how much money you have, all of that. I went through a lot to get residency, and I'm thinking, what? It's okay though. It was a pain. It was a pain in the butt. But you have to understand they don't want just anybody, and so same goes for the U.S. Maybe we don't just want anybody. We want to make sure that you're coming to our country not as a burden, but as an asset, right? So let's
yes,
just keep that in mind. It's try to be an asset. We want immigrants. We want immigrants who are an asset to our country. We don't want immigrants who are going to come and plunder, okay, and take and commit crimes. Nobody, no country wants that. I think that really should go unsaid. You don't. It's something that's obvious. And so that said, I think that we definitely do want immigration. We do want more immigrants. We It's a good thing. It's what this country is made of. We just want
yeah,
good
I think,
immigrants. That's it.
yeah,
We just want
I
good
think
ones.
I think another thing too is that we need to control, like you mentioned earlier. I mean,
Yeah.
we have to control how many immigrants can come in because we can't let everybody come in because if
Hmm.
we let everybody come in, there's no more jobs for everybody. And then you're going to end
Hmm.
up having the government pay, welfare and things like that. So for us, I think there has to be a limit of how many immigrants can come in because we
Yes.
only can give them so much jobs, right? I mean, we
Hmm.
can't have overpopulated with no jobs. Then what do you do with the people without the work? That means, is the government going to give them the money? Is that coming out of our taxpayers' money? So
Right.
there has to be some type of control of how much immigrants can come in. It's not that we're eliminating, say, no, we don't want you. No, we just need to control how many immigrants can come in because we need to know how many can get jobs. Yeah. Or how many
Well, and
jobs
also
available
the
for these
whole
immigrants.
housing crisis that is
Yes,
created from mass influx of immigrants. Yes.
correct. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. If you're still here, I'm assuming you like this podcast, so please give it a thumbs up. And also, please subscribe. Click the subscribe button. Click that bell next to the subscribe button and select all. And that way, YouTube will show you future videos we upload. Make sure you click the bell, select all. Very important step. Otherwise, you will not see future videos we upload. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And Leon, once again, thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you about this provocative topic.
Yeah, likewise, bro. I had a blast, so thank you for having me. Thanks, everyone. See you later. Ciao.
See you later, everybody. Bye bye.